Now on the order of third reading is House Bill 370. Senator Sims indicates he wishes to proceed. Mr. Secretary, please read the bill.
House Bill 370, an act concerning civil law, third reading of the bill.
Senator Sims.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendments that we adopted just a moment ago include the Youth Health and Safety Act. The Youth Health and Safety Act encompasses a wide-ranging amount of issues, but most importantly, it repeals the parental notice of abortion. But also it creates the Youth Health and Safety Working Group, which will allow for the establishment of a working group that will compile resources and identify resources available for young people, young parents, and parents to make stronger familial communications, but also to provide for services and necessary resources available for young people. I want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for the robust discussion that we had in the Senate Executive Committee about this piece of legislation. This is a necessary proposal to move our state forward, to protect our young people, often those who cannot protect themselves. With that, Mr. President, I ask for any questions, and we'll ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Senator Tracy, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. President. Questions of the sponsor, please.
He indicates he will yield. Senator Tracy.
Senator Sims, I know you are a parent, and I was wondering if you could give us an idea of what your definition of a parenting role is.
Senator Sims.
Senator, I think that a parent's role is to engage in the raising of their children and ensuring that they have the best life possible. I would say this to you, Senator, that I believe there's an African proverb that says that we don't necessarily build on this world as much as we borrow it from our children. So I believe that my responsibility as a parent is to make a world that my children can continue to grow and thrive in.
Senator Tracy.
Thank you for that. Now, your bill, you mentioned this amendment, and I would certainly support that amendment. Is there any possibility that you could move forward only on your amendment and reserve the portion of the bill that would repeal the Parental Notification Act?
Senator Sims.
Senator Tracy, I appreciate that request. However, what I would say to you is that one of the challenges that we have heard from opponents to the repeal of the Parental Notification Act is that it destroys familial communications. What the working group does is invest in those supports to make sure and ensure that young people and their parents have the resources that they so desperately need to make sure that we are providing them the resources that they need. But the reason that this is called the Youth Health and Safety Act is because one of the most detrimental laws that are currently on our books impacting young women is the parental notice of abortion.
Senator Tracy.
And in committee, I think your concern with the Parental Notification Act had to do with the minute number of cases, but the extreme cases where a child would be apprehensive about going to her parents or guardian and go through a court procedure. I believe that was correct.
Senator Sims.
No, Senator, I don't think that was what I said. But what I said was we don't know the total number of young people who fail to go through the judicial bypass procedure because we just don't know if they have taken that procedure or taken the opportunity to try to go through that procedure. That was more specifically what I said. But also what I'm concerned about, and you mentioned that I'm a parent, and I would say to all parents who are here, disassociate yourself from your relationship with your child, because we are walking in the shoes of our relationship with our children, when in reality There are young people who do not have the very strong relationships that I'm sure that all of us have in this chamber with our children. But those are not the young people that we are trying to protect. We are trying to protect those who cannot stand up for themselves, those who cannot turn to a trusted adult and say, I am in trouble, I need guidance. But also, that's why we have the working group that allows for the establishment and the identification of those resources so that we know that that young person will have access to those resources. So that young person will have access, and more specifically, their parents will have access to those resources that will help them to make those decisions as a family. We cannot force strong, authentic familial communications. But what we can do is create an environment where parents and their children can have those conversations authentically. And that's what we're doing with the Youth Health and Safety Act.
Senator Tracy.
Did you look at ways that we could improve the judicial bypass procedure as an alternative to just throwing out this complete act that most parents in the state of Illinois support?
Senator Sims.
And Senator, I again, I appreciate the question, and this is one of the items we talked about in committee. If you are a young person and you are seeking to utilize the judicial bypass, if you are a poor young person, if you are a young person who lives in a small town, if you are a young person who lives in a rural town, it is extremely difficult to go and access during business hours the judicial bypass procedure. Now, all of us have become accustomed to debating in public, speaking in public, but think about a young person who is walking to the doors of a courthouse and going into a courthouse and asking one of the most difficult, engaging in one of the most difficult conversations, period, and going and having to say that to a complete stranger, and asking that complete stranger to delve into their personal lives. And I would remind you that those judicial proceedings are confidential. So that young person who is already terrified has to go to the courthouse doors and try to get in and have this process play out. Then they're met with someone who is on the other side of the bench who does not share their empathy, who is not empathetic, and who is not looking at what is in their best interest, but is more importantly looking at their own self-interest and their own politics. So what we are trying to do is create an environment where these young people have access to services. They have access to the resources that will help them make sound decisions. And then to have the counseling services, the mental health services, the resources necessary that would allow them to engage in those discussions with their families, their partners, that will help them to make the right decision and the sound decision for them.
Senator Tracy.
Thank you, Senator Sims. Given that, I think I'll just go to the bill because obviously
To the bill.
To the bill. We have a great deal of distinction and disagreement of where we stand because certainly we know from the statistics that there is a small number of girls that go through the judicial bypass. There are advocates. We know there are resources, just as you mentioned, all the resources that are out there. Post-abortion, there are also many resources to surround that child going through that judicial bypass procedure that exists now. For those of you in this chamber that are non-parents, I would just say you have to put yourselves in the position of a parent. None of us knows what it's like to be a parent until you become one. It's the most basic human relationship that we know of. And it is a precious bond for a lifetime, but most critical during a young girl, a minor's formative years. My office has received numerous complaints and concerns about this bill, and I suspect all of yours have as well. Today in committee, because this bill was filed this morning, we still had 1,300 opponents and 400 proponents. That shows you right there that 3-1 people are in opposition across the state from this bill. And they only had a couple of hours, because here again, it is 8 o'clock in the evening, and we're giving the citizens of Illinois, the parents of Illinois, this much time to debate this bill. They don't even know what's going on, but we do. And it's our job to try to not create more boundaries and barriers in the family unit. We have enough problems in this state without creating more wedges between children and their parents. And in the last few years in this chamber, we've seen bills that allow or have changed the age of buying cigarettes to the age of 21. I don't like cigarettes whatsoever. I don't think any of age should be allowed to buy them. However, we changed it to 21 because we didn't think that person had the ability to know how to protect their health to buy a package of cigarettes. We didn't think they had that ability to protect their health. It's hard to understand why, when we recognize minors are still learning, growing, and developing the capacity to make mature decisions and exercise good judgment, we would repeal a law requiring parental notification for a minor to get an abortion. Every parent has the responsibility to provide a good and safe environment for their children. We know right now as parents that we've had to write notes for medication to be given to students, minors at school, but yet we would take away the right to have a notification of a major medical procedure to a young girl. There's just no justification for taking away parental notification. A pregnant 14-year-old girl doesn't have the emotional maturity which will have lifelong consequences, and she needs physical and mental support at the time by her parents. And what about complications? Not every abortion is successful. Post-operation complications happen. You send a 14-year-old girl home and her parents don't know that she's had a major procedure. What's to happen to her when complications like bleeding out occur and the parents don't know that she's had this procedure? There's an instance of a young woman. Her name is Tanya Reeves from the city of Chicago. She was 24, not a minor, but however, she had major complications from an abortion performed at a Planned Parenthood in the Loop in Chicago. She had a perforated uterus, and she died because the clinic did not share with the ER what had happened to her, and she bled out. Her family was awarded $2 million settlement because when she left that abortion clinic, nobody told anybody what was wrong with her, and they knew. They could have saved her life. But this is the complications that sometimes happen. A 14-year-old girl facing the same situation, she's not going to think she's going to die. She's not going to tell her parents right away because we've already removed any thought of her process that her parents need to be informed. I think it's unconscionable that we would think her parents should know so that they could help her with these post-operation complications. We must not pass laws that cut parents out of this very important decision-making process. Repealing the Parent Notification of Abortion Act sends a clear message to parents across the state of Illinois. You don't matter in your child's life. Well, we as parents, myself as a parent, I want my children to know, I want my grandchildren to know that they matter in their lives, and so do the parents I represent. They do matter, and they have responsibilities and duties for their children. Every time we negate one of these and we create a barrier, we're sending this message stronger and stronger, and it does more harm than good, I can tell you. It is easier to understand why when you look at the governor's radical agenda that he's pushed through this legislative veto session, that it's just one more example of our governor and this majority-controlled assembly, that they believe that they know what is best for our children rather than the parents and the grandparents and the foster parents and the guardians who raise them. The attack on parental rights is a constant theme of this administration, and it's just one more example of the governor's overreach into the lives and the homes of Illinois families, and this body is allowing it to happen. And I stand strongly opposed to eliminating this parental notification, and I urge my colleagues to join me in recognizing the rights of parents across this state and vote no.
Senator Bryant, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Thank you. I rise to the bill and to the body.
To the bill.
Thank you. Today I rise in opposition to House Bill 370. Time and time again, this governor has spit in the faces of the families of this state. He's shown his total and complete disregard for the rights of the family unit. And now he's at it again, but he's using this body. I almost used the word minions when I was putting some notes together for this, but I don't think we're minions of anybody. I think we are clear thinkers, and we're able to decide for ourselves. But this body is being used to take away the rights of parents. The bill has an amendment added to it that has a task force that everybody in here knows. It's smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. It's to make it look like it's okay to take a parent's rights away because the government is going to look at how parents should parent, and then we're going to tell them, again, we're going to put a task force together that tells them how to do it. We've now asked, we've now been asked in the sponsor's presentation to disassociate ourselves from our own children and our family issues, and we're supposed to think about the vulnerable in our communities. But to come here and disassociate ourselves from our family experiences, from the things that we've shared in our own lives that we're supposed to bring here with us, we're supposed to disassociate ourselves from our own family experiences on this bill. So I want to speak to you as a mother and as a grandmother, and I also, rather than disassociate ourselves from the issue, I'd like to speak for the nearly 50,000, and it may be 50,000 now, just a half an hour ago or so it was 49,000 plus, who put in witness slips in opposition of this bill. So I would say that we're here tonight not to disassociate ourselves from our families or from the experiences that we bring here, but we're here to speak for them. They have elected us because we bring our shared experiences here. And we're supposed to be speaking for those 50,000 plus. That's just the ones that could figure out how to do a witness slip. As a mother and a grandmother, I will not and I cannot silently stand by as this chamber seeks to tie the hands of parents, allowing children to make decisions regarding their health without parental guidance. These are children frequently that are facing difficult circumstances and not considering the long-term consequences of their actions. I urge you to not take away their parental foundation at a time when a child may need their parent the most. And again, I keep saying child in this because we're not talking about adult women making this decision. We're talking about what basically could be little girls. I know some girl, actually in my daughter's junior high, 12 years old, trying to make this decision. Thank God she had a family that was notified by the school so that they could help her along. Maybe it's good to live in a rural community where we all know each other. Even if you disagree with me on this point, the fact remains that parental notice goes beyond just a basic support system. I think we've talked about this over the last few days in press conferences, maybe today in the committee, but it goes beyond just the parental notification. By removing parental notice laws, we're essentially paving the way for a system to protect predators and abusers while silencing the actual victims. Did you know that in 2018, Illinois ranked 11th in the nation for the number of cases for human trafficking? And as of now, Illinois parental notification law provides young girls, as a previous speaker talked about, provides young girls trafficked or abused a way to get help in what seems to them a helpless situation. However, if you strip this safeguard, the children will continue to be silenced, and we will be complicit in creating an environment that empowers predators, sex traffickers, and abusers. Eliminating the parental notice law would be a tragic, irreparable mistake. Taking away the right of mothers like me to support their daughters, to support their children, is criminal. As a mother, as a grandmother, I implore you to vote no on this bill. Protect our children by protecting our families. Thank you.
Senator Bailey, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
May I speak to the bill, please? Thank you, Mr.
To the bill.
President. Well, here we are again. Seems to be a habit. I can't believe that we're here considering this egregious, dangerous, and life-threatening legislation. And I can't believe that some of you would have the audacity even to consider removing parental rights from a serious procedure such as abortion performed on a child. The parental notice thankfully saves around 1,000 lives per year. But you know what? This is an issue that transcends abortion. It involves the rights of parents to protect their children from sexual predators and human traffickers. Approximately 1/3 of abortions with minors involve a sex offender. Why would you not want a parent or a legal guardian to know this so they are capable of stepping in and protecting their child? Why would you not want to help identify these predators and get these dangerous people off the streets? Let me quote some poll statistics on this very issue. In March, the Parents for the Protection of Girls Coalition did a poll of Illinois voters. They found that an overwhelming 72% of Illinois voters support parental rights of abortion. Even more so, 76% of the people of color support parental rights for abortion, and even 55% of those who indicated they were pro-choice support parental rights of abortion. So let me ask you, why? Why do you want to remove it? Do you think the government knows better than parents? I certainly want to understand what is going on with my children and be there to help them, and I hope that you would too. I'm pro-life, and I know that we may disagree on this, but let me ask you all to put aside any agenda or message that you may want to send to another state for passing pro-life legislation. And let me remind you that we are not here to compete with California or New York on who can be the most pro-abortion state. We are here to represent Illinoisans, and the overwhelming majority of Illinoisans want to keep parental rights. I'm urging you to do what is right. I'm praying that you will put the safety of our children first, that you will not enable sexual predators and human traffickers, and that you will not remove the parent from this significant decision. We must support the parental notification law as it is currently written, and we must protect the fundamental rights of parents to protect their children. Please vote no. Thank you.
Senator Sally Turner, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Thank you to the bill.
To the bill.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for allowing me to have all of your attention. This is something that's very passionate to me. I could say that notification to a family member is in the best interest of minors, and the purpose of this act is to protect your minors. And I could tell you that, in fact, repealing parental notification allows older men to use abortion to conceal evidence of their sexual abuse of minor girls. And I also could tell you that 32% of teen mothers, 15 to 17, are impregnated by a man that's 20 years older than 20 years. and that's from the National Campaign for Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. And I could also tell you that girls deserve every safeguard against abuse that society can offer. I'm a mom of a daughter, just like many of you, so the fact that we're debating this is very passionate to me. As parents, we're obligated to care for not only our children's physical health, but their mental health as well. And I can keep talking more and more about the different issues that my fellow senators brought up, but I'm just thinking about this. Let's think about it this way. How many people have a teenager daughter, or have had a teenage daughter, and they're crying in their bedroom, and you know they're crying, and you know they broke up with their boyfriend, and they're sobbing in that room, and you come to the door and check on them, and you go back out, and you go to the door and check on them. They don't want anything to do with you at that moment. But then finally, it's too late. You go back in there, and they might have a high fever, or they might be septic. You don't know, because they haven't told you their experience. And I think that's what's so important, that we need to be available for our children. Thank you.
Senator Resin, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the bill, please.
To the bill.
Thank you. I'm a parent, a mother of 4, and I rise in opposition to House Bill 370. The sponsor said to support the elimination of parental notification to protect the children. He also said that the current Parental Notification Act is the most detrimental law impacting young children. He said to disassociate yourself from your child. He also stated in his opening, don't worry, we're going to have a task force, a working group, an establishment who will give the child the support that they need, not the parents. No matter who you are or what you believe, this bill is a travesty for the mental health of our children throughout the state. Leaving young girls alone to make this huge health and life decision without communication or support from their parents and mental health professionals is not just irresponsible, it's cruel. Parental consultation is usually in the best interest of the minor, since the capacity to become pregnant and the capacity for mature judgment concerning abortion are not necessarily related. A study published recently in the Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons found that nearly 3/4 of women with a history of abortion surveyed admitted that they experienced at least subtle forms of pressure to terminate their pregnancy. Repealing parental notification may make it easier for sexual predators to manipulate their victims into having abortions and to conceal their crimes. In fact, I'd like to share a story with you today. Dr. Brooke Bellows is the founder and CEO of More to Life, which is a group dedicated to ending human trafficking. Recently, Dr. Bellows spoke to NPR about being a survivor of human trafficking and preteen rape. She was forced to have multiple abortions by her traffickers early in her teens, and today she's unable to bear children. Her traffickers were able to get away with it because they kept her in a state that didn't require parental notification for teen abortion. In the article, Dr. Bellows said, had my parents been notified, my mother would have known what city I was in, she would have known what street I possibly had been near, and she could have contacted law enforcement. Dr. Bellows' story could be, unfortunately, one of many, and if we repeal this law today, I fear that we may put young girls in danger of having to go through what Dr. Bellows has endured. Illinois is one of 37 states that requires people under the age of 18 to notify a parent before getting an abortion. This debate goes well beyond just whether we think abortion is acceptable or not. It's a slap in the face to the thousands of parents around this state who want nothing more than to be the support system for their child. Government intervention is not the solution. A minor needs parental consent to go on a field trip, to get their ears pierced, and to undergo virtually any medical procedure. Did you know that a minor has to get a parental consent to get a vaccination? The fact that we're debating whether a parent simply needs to be notified if they undergo a major medical procedure that could have lifelong effects is frightening. This isn't about abortion. This is about Illinois government thinking they know what's better for our children than the parents and guardians who raised them. It's about taking away notification with a vote that could affect girls for their entire lives. We're seeing more and more of this invasion of parental rights with this administration, from controversial sex education bills in our schools to health care mandates. No matter what your political affiliation is, and no matter what your abortion stance is, young children should not have to make these major medical decisions and emotional decisions alone without the support of people who are meant to care for them. There has to be a line. This is the line. Protect it and protect our children. Thank you.
Senator Sims to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me speak to a couple of the points I heard during debate. One, that people didn't know about this bill. This bill has been out here since 2019. It is a topic that has been talked about over and over again. That there was a contention that folks didn't know about it, but yet there have been emails that have been going to our offices and communities. You can't have it both ways. Either you know about it or you didn't. So that's number one. Number two, there was over and over again, there was the contention that young people, young women, 14 and under, make up the bulk of the individuals who are going to be, who are covered, or who are getting abortions in Illinois, and that's just not the case. Young people make up less than 10% of the total number of abortions statewide. So let's make that very clear. Another issue that came up was that parents don't know, or if there's a complication related to the abortion, the parents have no way to be involved. Let's be very clear. The only decision when it relates to to pregnancy, the only decision that a parent has to be involved in, is required to be involved in, is if the child decides to have an abortion. If there is a C-section, if a cesarean section is necessary, someone invoked my children. My wife had our children by cesarean section. One of them was via emergency cesarean section. But if a child, 15, my wife, who was an adult, was able to make those decisions. But if a child were in that same circumstance to decide between the life of the child or her own, she wouldn't have to tell her parent anything. So that's another point. There was another point that said that this spits in the face of parents. That is so offensive that I can't even believe that the statement was made, but it was, so I'll address it. The discussion is about ensuring that young people have access to healthy family communications. And there was another statement made that, that I said, disassociate yourself from your children. That is not what I said. I said, take a step back from your relationship with your own children to walk in the steps and walk in the shoes of young people who do not have healthy family relationships. That's what I said. Let me also say, there was this contention that the elimination of parental notification of abortion somehow aids human traffickers. Experts in human trafficking says there is no link. That is a myth. In their words, not mine. It is a myth that there is a link between human trafficking and the parental notification of abortion. That's a myth. Those are their words, not mine. Then there was a contention made that we're talking about consultation. What you are not talking about is consultation. You're talking about compulsory birth. You are talking about forcing someone into a condition where someone has the ability to determine if their child has a baby or not. Not whether they take the baby to term, not whether or not they give the baby up for adoption, but only if they have to take the baby to term. Also, finally, again, my children were brought into this debate. Let me tell you about my children. I have two of the most amazing daughters God ever put on this green earth. And the day that both of them were born, I made a promise to God and all of man that I would protect them with my very life. Some of you know about a situation I was involved in a shooting in a shopping mall. And at that moment, I proved to my children I would lay down my very life for them if it came to it. Now, you talk about those healthy familial communications. Let me talk about the communications I have had with my daughters. Not just my daughters, but my daughters' friends who feel comfortable enough talking to me as a father and as a father figure. Having a conversation with them and talking specifically about this bill. I asked them, what do you think about this bill? Those young women, to a person, said to me, I have my own mind, let me use it. I think that is a very powerful statement. James Baldwin once said that children have never been good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. Let's set the example for them to imitate. Mr. President, I ask for an aye vote.
The question is, shall House Bill 370 pass? All those in favor will vote aye. Opposed, nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? We will now move to senators voting remotely, starting with Senator Aquino.
Aquino votes yes.
Aquino votes yes. Senator Collins.
Collins votes yes.
Senator Collins votes yes. Senator Ellman.
Ellman votes yes.
Senator Ellman votes yes. Senator Hastings. Senator Hastings. Senator Rose.
Rose votes no.
Senator Rose votes no. Senator Stewart.
Stewart votes no.
Senator Stewart votes no. Senator Van Pelt.
Senator Van Pelt votes yes.
Senator Van Pelt votes yes. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish. Take the record. On that question, there are 32 senators voting yea, 22 voting nay, 0 present. House Bill 370, having received the constitutional required majority, is declared passed.